going, team? This is the Brown Man, and we are back with the last of the four survivor classes, Leader. So, Leaders recently got a buff of 100 HP to make them a little bit tankier, so they can take an extra hit or so. And that scales up, of course, with Industrial Strength. So, not bad, not bad. If you want to think about it that way. So let's get into this. So thanks to the last update, they brought down the overall balance bar of survivors, and they brought up the health of demons. So all leaders are pretty much on an even plane due to the update. And let me explain why. Just in terms of the health bar, damage is definitely noted as a good thing, because you cannot just balance bar stun things to death as frequently anymore. So outright burst damage is good. There are a lot of people playing double warrior, so an Arthur is not bad, and El Jefe is not bad, and of course an Annie is not bad due to increasing the balance bar, and gun damage was brought down, so definitely these two are good for that. And of course, if you want even more gun damage, this is good. So they all have their own unique thing, but I do like how they're making it more so that leaders are more integral to the team composition. Though some people do not respect what the leader adds, they still don't really do it. So let's get into it really quickly. So we have Lord Arthur. Lord Arthur is below. The only reason why he's a little bit lower than the other two is because he's purely melee. Melee is not bad. Once again, a lot of people are running double warrior, including Mia. So Lord Arthur just below, just because he doesn't benefit every single character, or necessarily the strengths or the importance. The important damage type that every single character brings. He mostly just goes into melee, and of course everyone can use melee, but when other people are using melee, whether it be hunters or supports, they tend to take a lot of damage, so it's more of a liability if they melee. So that's the only reason why he's down here, is that by boosting the melee of, once again, supports and hunters, they take a lot of health damage when it comes to fighting a possessed unit, so your team is going to have to use a lot more shemps. If they stand back, then they just don't receive a benefit of the extra melee damage. One thing that is notable is that the increased melee damage does help when you are melee stun locking an ally. So if you do more damage, if you have a hunter or something possessed and you guys are attacking that hunter, then they will be depossessed sooner. So that's one thing. If you like these kinds of videos, of course, like, share, subscribe, etc. So let's get into it. So the first ability we're going to go into is, of course, the active Lord's Wrath. When activated, you start getting on fire. You're like, "Hiya!" And you're this flaming champion of justice. And melee damage goes up by 20%. And of course, if you have a sword, you get an extra damage boost to the Lord's Wrath, but you do still keep the initial 20% melee damage. So you can use any weapon you want, but of course for your personal use, if you want to max out on damage, you can do swords. Heavy attacks do 30% more, light attacks do 30% more, and fuel the fire. When you do a finisher, it adds an extra 5 seconds, so you keep chaining finishers, and Lord's Wrath will last longer. That is the dopeness of Lord Arthur. He's very straightforward. You beat things to death with your team. I do last word. Some people don't do it, but honestly, that damage is felt. Even if you go like 3 lights into the last one being a heavy, yeah, you're going to feel that extra bit, like the extra chunk of life that just drops off. Last word is a bit of an underrated perk on certain people. Some people don't go into last word because they want to do finishers, and you can always do finishers, but for the possessed units and the bosses, you're not going to be doing a finisher on them anyway. You go into the last word and you chunk that fucking health bar off. Very straightforward. Nothing really to get into with this guy. Of course, a good pick for double warrior compositions. We have next is going to be more. They're really close together, and one of those reasons we're going to go into when we go into Annie. But first, we're going to go into El Jefe. El Jefe boosts range, damage, melee damage, and fear resistance. So, the first ability is Show Up and Blow Up. You do it, you do a fist bump in the air. It has a little shockwave, but that does a good amount of balance bar damage, and it knocks him back. Good stuff. El Jefe is the aura ability, so 15 all damage is up by 15% in that aura, and all fear resistance is up by 20%. So pretty good for protecting people from getting possessed. If you take that. Old friend, you start with the chainsaw, not bad. And El Jefe Grande enhances your aura effects when you perform a finisher or dismember an enemy. So you want to be mindful that it's also dismemberment. So you don't have to go for every single finisher. You can run a saw gun that scales up to 210 dismemberment damage on the legendary, or you can go explosive crossbow. And either way, that is on the special weapon side. And hunters and whatnot tends to go for the long gun. So that's one way to help yourself out if you go that route. I go max into Great Influence. We go, of course, Fast Forward, Balance Bar, along with Devastating Force. Devastating Force, because the health bar actually went up for units, you can go into Devastating Force. Some people say Devastating Force isn't really worth it, but I'm like, that extra damage is always worth it for me, because of the health increase, and when things go to the book phase, the extra 15% goes a long way as you stack up on hits. So 15% on these hits goes quite far. And of course, if you don't like that, you can go into 3/3 on Last Word if you want to increase the damage. While you're attacking units, that's fine. If you want, you can also go into guns if you want to mix it up. If you want to be a bit bulky, if you don't believe in investing in damage, you can actually take out of here and go into the tree, going towards Tougher Than Hell. But he is in the middle because, once again, he benefits everybody's damage type, and having fear reduction in your kit is not bad, especially when people spec into traps to spawn elites, or just to try to manipulate there being 1 or 2 warriors on the team. I mean 1 or 2 hunters on the team. And it makes Mia's fear go up a bit slower if she's within range, but it also means she can use her active a bit later, because typically they use her active when they think the demon is going to possess the Mia. And last, of course, just slightly above will be Annie. So they've reduced a lot of balance bar damage, and her balance bar increase will supplement for that. Let's get into it. Hit 'em Where It Hurts is her active. 30% damage buff to ranged, 15-second duration, and the cooldown is 45. So you pop it, she glows for X amount of time, and when she's glowing, that means your range damage is going to be hitting a lot harder. Howitzer, so range damage is up by 25%. Haymaker, balance bar damage to basics is 15%, and Slugger, balance bar damage to elites is up by 15%. And balance bar to bosses is up by 100%. And this is good because we have a balance bar resistant Plaguebringer. So being able to stun that boss a bit quicker is good. And not bad. So range damage, of course, benefits obviously those that shoot. And balance bar damage benefits the warriors who are spamming heavies. So when it comes to range got a debuff. It goes from 1.8 on headshots to the original 3 demons to 1.25, which is quite a bit. So she brings that punch back into the bullet, back into those pellets. And unfortunately, these are wasted perks here. 3 is a wasted perk. It should be all in one, but instead they did something like this, and they nerfed her down by 10%. So that's why she is a little bit closer to El Jefe, because that used to be 25 and that used to be 25 on the elites. So she's just good. Also, if you want to play her in lieu of a hunter, You can go outside of here. You don't have to go into Tougher Than Hell. You can go into here, or if you don't want to invest in this tree kind of here, you can go into Wig Splitter, of course. If you want to supplement for a hunter, she loses her damage buff of the auras when she's possessed, so her range damage scales down a bit. And of course, being a leader, she does 1.0 of the range. 1.0 becomes 1.25, becomes 1.55 here, and hunters do 1.5. Of course, she doesn't have the last two pink Fs in range like hunters do, but she can do some comparable damage, of course. And that's it for the tier list. Leaders are very short and very to the point. They buff everybody around them. Unfortunately, Annie got hit, but she's useful, and she's pretty much tied about with El Jefe, being able to buff anybody. And Arthur only benefits pretty much a warrior comp, but of course, along with Mia, if Mia is playing with really high fear, that would be a really quick melt for a lot of people. But of course, warrior comps and a lot of melee comps, they can eat through Sheps if the demon player is getting their hits off and is zoning them, especially with the Plaguebringer Sheepwitch herself. You guys be safe, stay hydrated, and of course, have a good one.